Hey guys, this is Scott, or Klegran on the forums. I am the lead designer for Nekro, as well as the environmental artist, effects artist, and well, the only programmer on the team. So I'm going to be showing you some of the stuff that I have been working on for the past few months. We're going to be showing off some of the unit AI, pathing, take kind of behind the scenes look at some of the things that we've been making. Just keep in mind that all this stuff is not final. We are still in pre-alpha. We will be moving to alpha pretty soon, but we're going to be showing you some old assets that you've seen already, but we're going to be showing them in a slightly new way with some of the newer tech. We know you guys have been seeing this one zone for a while, as well as these units. So we're going to show off a little bit more today, but we just don't want to give everything away just yet. So at the end of the video, we will show a new zone. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. All right, let's hop right in. All right, so the first thing we're going to get into is the randomized world generation system. Now this is something we've been talking about since the beginning of Nekro, and it's basically one of the most integral parts of our game in terms of how we want the gameplay to be experienced. We always want it to be randomized. We want it to be a new, fresh play experience every time you go through. But of course, with that comes some pretty significant overhead of having to make a world that looks good and plays well while also keeping it random. So that presents a lot of challenges. So I'm just going to take you through some of the ways that we are overcoming these challenges. So this is one of the older zones here that you guys have seen in the Kickstarter video initially. So I'm going to be using this as our example so you can see something familiar. We're doing some different methods for newer zones. But this is the one that we currently have in there. So the first thing it does is generate the world in layers. Now these layers go from largest to smallest. So the way we do it is we take large objects and put them in the world first, since they take up the most space, and then slowly move down to smaller objects such as mushrooms and plants, and propagate them around the edges of the larger objects. So if we do that in smaller, ever decreasing layers, we get pretty realistic looking results. This is the first layer here. As you can see, every time I hit the play button, it regenerates a new world with a different interior. So this guarantees that the world shape will be different every single time you play the game. So once we have the world edges, what we do is make these forest trees. These forest trees just add a little bit of spice to the level. So this is all still the top layer here. It's making those mines that you see, those big rocks. And then intersplicing them with the forest trees. So you get a cool kind of interesting shape that always gives you a unique play space to work in. So as you can see, it tries to group different kind of vegetation with the larger objects, so it kind of creates clumps. We're doing that to try and make the world a little bit more succinct and a little bit more understandable and readable. When you just put a bunch of clutter everywhere, it just looks too random. So we find that grouping them together helps the world maintain a little more of a understandable state. So here we finish off with the final level, which is to say the lowest tier of propagation, which is you get the smaller rocks, the mushrooms, and all those use that clumping algorithm that keeps everything together and makes it look like it's all part of the same world. So once we have the world created, what we do is hand it off to the pathing system. So what the pathing system is going to do is figure out what is movable space versus immovable space. And this presented some different and interesting challenges for me than other games I've worked on, because since the world is 100% random, meaning we don't know where anything is going to be at any time, we can't define predefined nodes of pathing. That's what a lot of games do. If you look in a lot of first-person shooters, pathing in those games, the artists and designers can go in and put specific nodes down where they want the units to move. And the units can diverge from those paths but ever so slightly. They mainly stick along these predefined nodes. So when I went to make this game, I was trying to figure out how am I going to make these nodes when I have no idea where the nodes are going to be ahead of time. So what we do is we take the world, and as you can see here, here's all the pathing nodes. So what we do is use a flood fill algorithm to basically create these dots you're seeing here. Now wherever you see yellow dots, that's pathable space, and wherever you see red dots, it's impassable. So much like the paint bucket in Photoshop, we flood fill from the inside going out, and whenever it reaches an edge, it marks that as red. And once we have those edges defined, we can then explicitly tell the pathing engine what is valid and invalid as movement nodes. So what I'm going to do is now take a punge, which you guys have seen before, but show how he works inside the world. So the punge follows around the Nekro. We wanted to have him always try and stand in front of you. So if you notice where the Nekro is facing, the punge will attempt to stand in front of the Nekro. But if I point him in front of me towards a tree, he will path around that tree. So he'll always try and figure out where I'm telling him to go, but he'll always hold himself accountable to the pathing engine. Now the reason I even mention this is because we actually don't have collision in our game. All the collision is turned off except for the Nekro. The units are allowed to walk through anything that they want, but they're told not to by the engine. So what this means is you can essentially have units that will, if they're forced into a corner, they can get out of that corner. A lot of video games, I hate in video games when this happens, is you can lead the AI into a little corner and then keep him there, and he can't find a way out, so he'll just stand in place and do absolutely nothing, and then you can just wail on him from afar and take him out. So in Nekro, since we do have a randomized world, and I can't figure out ahead of time all of the areas that we're going to have that units can get trapped in, I put a failsafe in so that units can force themselves out of those paths and out of those little niches if they have to. But most of the time, like 99% of the time, they won't, and they will path around it. So we put that in there just to make sure that the gameplay experience is always fluid and always moving, because nothing breaks that experience more than just a broken pathing engine. So what I'm going to show now is some of the group pathing. So I put a few more punches in here, and they are all going to now follow the same rules as the individual punch, but they move as a group. So they're using kind of a grouping algorithm, which tells them to stay together. But as you see, when I try to go around that tree, they move individually. So when they find an obstacle in their way, they avoid it as individuals. But when there's no obstacles, they continue on as a group and will move as one solitary unit. So what this does is ensure that they will always stand in front of the Nekro as a kind of like a wall, because they're your tank units. You want them to take the hits up front, and you want them to do that no matter which way you're facing. So also you can push through them. That's one of the biggest things I hate in video games. If you see they just move right around you, is where the enemy AI will block your path, and even your friendly AI will block your path, and you can't go through them, and you get stuck. So you can push them out of the way, and they will just move around you like water. That was very important when we were designing the system, to have that integrated in there. So obviously this is just for the punch unit. Every unit has a different AI and pathing algorithm that they take into account when they're making movements. The Witcher, for example, will always try and avoid you and kite you and run away. So his pathing is running on a very different system than the punges or the townies, for example. Next, I'm going to show you a shader I wrote for the units. Now, since we are making a game that's based on characters, having the characters look good and have a lot of diversity was very important to us. Since we have 3 different factions, the Order, the Neutrals, and the Nekro faction, We wanted each to have a very distinctive feel and look to it, but they also have to all abide by the same game rules that are present at any point within the gameplay experience. So what I'm going to do is show you here the shader on the Punj unit, which we've been seeing this demo so far. So here he is just as the basic unit as he is in the game right now. So the first thing I wanted to be able to do is add some diversity to how slimy they are. Since we're making a game that has a lot of monsters, I wanted to be able to make the units very slimy. So I can make them look like they have this really thick leathery skin, or I can increase this what's called specularity to almost pinpoint it to be a little bit more like a goo or like a film on top of them, as you see here. So this enables us to make the units have all different skin types. They can get wet in rain. It just adds a lot of diversity to the unit ability. The next one here is the damage. Now this is a dynamic damage part of the shader that we can add damage as they're taking damage. So you can have a visual element when you're checking and seeing what their health is. We didn't want a bunch of floating health bars all over everything, so adding this in really enables us to visually express their health to the player without shoving all this UI in their face. So we can take it out and add it dynamically. Now this one's pretty cool. This is the vomit part of the shader, which it's pretty silly, but the Punj can vomit on stuff. And what I wanted is I wanted that vomit to look really cool. So as you can see, it's directional. It's only coming from the top down right now. But what I can do is I can change what's called a vector, and that makes the direction of the vomit change as well. So now it's coming from the left-hand side, whereas before it was the top. And now the whole left-hand side is covered, but the right-hand side is not. So no matter what direction the Punj is vomiting from, it can add some pretty cool effects. And you match that with a lot of particle systems with like dripping. It sells it pretty well. So the next one is the outline. I wanted you to be able to select the units, and when you select them, have it be pretty obvious that they're selected. This is pretty standard in games nowadays, but it's pretty cool that we were able to integrate this into one shader without having to make it in a separate object. So the next one is the dissolve ability. Now when you kill a unit, you want their corpse to eventually dissolve, so you can't make another unit out of that corpse. Since our game is based on raising the undead, corpses and corpse degradation is very important in our games. So we want to be able to take the corpses away, and actually we can use this to bring in new units as well. So this last one is the unit highlight feature. I wanted you, when you moused over a unit, to be very obvious which one you're selecting, since a lot of units can group up in a big cluster, and it's hard to tell which unit you're going to be attacking or selecting if you click. So I want to be able to be very obvious which one you have selected. So that's just a basic look at some of the unit shader properties that we have. This will be ever evolving as the game continues to grow, and I want to add a lot more features and make it a lot more dynamic. Next, we're going to show off some of the in-game gameplay, which this is actually the first time we'll be showing any gameplay from Nekro. This, as I said at the beginning, this is using one of our older zones with a lot of assets that you've already seen, but I will be showing some newer assets such as the Witcher, the Troll in-game, the Meat Mouth, and what's a new unit called the Flea. I will also be showing off the one of the armor sets, which we're calling powers now. So this is one of the powers that you get in the game. This is not the only power. What this particular power is it's a ranged support power. Each power that you get essentially enables you to play a different class without adhering to a class-based system, because every game seems to do that nowadays, and I just wanted to just stay away from that. So if you select this as the Alchemist power I'm going to be using today, what this allows you to do is you can throw vials, and when you're throwing vials, you can do damage to your enemy, or you can do a AoE heal to your friendlies. So you can only throw vials at a specific rate, so you have to choose what you want to be doing with your time. Also, your spacing is very important. Where you keep your Necro in relation to your minions is going to be very important with supporting them. So this is, like I said, this is just the support power. There's going to be melee powers, which plays a lot more like Diablo, get up there and just hack and slash. There's going to be range powers, you can just kind of stand back and just throw some volleys in, as well as some kind of more twitch powers that we're adding in that really enable the game to take different approaches to the same scenario. So keep in mind also that the Necro he's very powerful in this particular demo I'm going to be showing off. He's not going to die very easily. I just made him overpowered to just show these things off. In the final game, this will be a lot more balanced, and the units we're fighting against will be a lot more varied as well. So let's go ahead and get in game here. So here's how the vials work. You can just throw them in the arc wherever you're pointing the mouse. So this UI is very temporary. We are loading in a new UI. It's being hand drawn. It's looking awesome. So just please keep in mind this is not final by any means. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is go and get some blood, which will enable me to make some units. So I'm going to blow up these pigs here, and then grab their blood. I couldn't grab the other one because this townie's coming after me. So what I can do with this armor set is I can kite him. He'll go down pretty easy. And as you can see, we had a little flavor text. When the unit dies, they say stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and make a punch here. This is showing off some of the new effects we have. Thomas, our lead artist, he really wants the game to be full of these really cool sigils, and they look awesome. We just put sigils everywhere, make it really demonic looking, really dark and creepy. So, like you saw from before, the punch will now follow me around, and I'm going to try and pull some townies out from these towns here so I can harvest their blood. So I'll tell my punch to attack the townie. And remember, I'm not directly controlling him. I can do that, but that's an upgraded skill. So he just chose to do that on his own. I kind of just push him in the direction of the townie and he'll figure it out. So all the punches are just doing this automatically right now. So the Scourge is my #1 ability. I'm using those to send them in. If I hold on spacebar, I can also go into command mode, and as you saw, I just blew up a punch there to do some AoE damage on both those townies. So I can sacrifice the units whenever I want to do extra damage to everyone around me. So I'm going to keep kiting these guys, trying to get more blood so I can make more units. If I use one, the Scourge do AoE damage, as you can see, it just get all those pigs there. Drops lots of blood and makes lots of gore, which is basically awesome. You're also seeing some of the rain effects that we added in. Now these are events. This is tied into the event system, which we've been working really hard on. The event system, as we talked about in the Kickstarter video, is a lot of the randomized world things that take place. Like in the Kickstarter video, we talked about a troll coming out of nowhere. Rain is one of those things, but it's a little bit more calm of an event, and it just blocks your vision and makes movement a little bit harder. So as you can see, I still go into command mode here and issue individual commands out. I'll also cast a meat mouth on that Witcher to take him out of the fight temporarily, so now he's inside the meat mouth. It's basically just a CC unit. Now I can upgrade all these units as well, so that they last longer and they're more potent. So I'm going to send my one punch after the Witcher and try and take aggro over there while I support them. I'm throwing the vials onto the punch, try and heal him up so he doesn't take too much damage. So now I'm going to cast the Horrors, which we had some really cool effects for. They hatch out of eggs. So the Horrors, they just come into the game, do lots of group damage, they like swarm like Zerg, and then they just disappear. So you got to use them very carefully and very specifically when you want to just do a lot of burst damage. But they also control individually, so you can tell them different commands if you want. So as you can see, the Witchers are trying to run away here. They always try and kite the enemy, and they actually lay down traps too, which is pretty cool.
I've got 2 guns. 3.
They also do crit damage, so obviously you can see they blow up the enemy. And we have a cool little system where the units, they'll talk to one another. And the first time that you walk into the town, the townie, he's kind of like the lowest tier, so he's a little ignorant. He'll just be like, you know, what's that? And just go investigate it himself. But the Witcher, who's a seasoned monster hunter, he'll call for reinforcements the second he sees something that he doesn't like. So what that enables you to do is go and pick off individual townies very easily. But then once the units start getting a lot harder, they start calling each other for help, which will significantly increase the difficulty. So here we have a randomized troll event where the troll just happened to be attacking a town that I was trying to attack. So as you can see, he's very strong. There's all kinds of mayhem. Everyone is trying to shoot me while I'm trying to shoot them, and the troll's just wreaking havoc. You can also see the shader we were talking about a little earlier with that dynamic damage. It really shows off on the troll as the injury spots on him grow a little bit larger as he gets damaged. So I can hover over it. As you can see, if I hover over any of them, the health ring below them shows their health. It goes from green to red. So I can check their actual health anytime I want, but I can get a visual indication of their health just using that shader. And the Witcher's going to try and run away from him here, but obviously the troll's just too strong. And the nice thing is they're ignoring me because they're so busy fighting, so I can just capitalize on that and just go in and take the killing blows.
Nature requires a corpse.
So here we're fighting some fleas. These have been one of the newer units that we're adding in that we're showing off today. These little guys, they're pack animals. They're like these little bouncing, freaky guys that just run around, and they're devastating in large groups. But as you see, as I slowly start dwindling the group away, they become a lot less dangerous. So they're also very susceptible to AoE attacks, so I just blew up my punch and took out a lot of them. So I'm still getting totally destroyed here, but as I start taking out more and more of the fleas, the fight becomes much easier.
Creature requires a corpse.
They also heal themselves every time they attack, so if they're left to their own devices, they will actually grow in number and become a lot stronger if you don't take them out right away. Alright, so now we're going to show off the new zone. This zone is called the Grave Plains. It's a really dark, gritty zone that has basically graveyards everywhere. The whole theme of the zone is just graveyards. And since most of you guys that are backers are going to get your names on these gravestones, we needed a lot of them. So it just made sense to make a zone that had a lot of gravestones. So what you'll be able to see is if you just go around and put the mouse over each one of the gravestones, you'll see one of the backers' names, and it might be yours. So what we're going to show off first is a statue that was made by one of our artists by the name of Steve Kick. He's a very talented guy. Used to work at Sony, and he made this statue that we're going to put in the graveyard, and I'm just going to show you a speed sculpt of what he made in ZBrush. So here you can see the statue with some of the elements of the graveyard. We just have gravestones everywhere. Tried to go for very grassy too. We're going for like kind of like the Scottish Highlands with this very thick patchy grass, but also just very dead. So we're trying to just keep to that kind of not cartoony style, but a little less realistic. Just a lot of diffuse painting, a lot of hand-drawn textures. So moving on over to here, this is one of the tar pits. We just wanted this black sticky tar on everything, and this is one of the cool assets I made for this zone. Has a kind of cool shader I wrote here for it with this. It looks kind of like oil with that rainbow slick look on it. So I'm pretty happy with how that one came out. This is another one that Steve Kick did. It's kind of like a little tomb or something. You can actually slide this guy off and see little bones inside. Did a lot of work on it. It's pretty good. I'll slide that back on. Don't want to let that guy escape. So here is something like we just want these really nasty bubbles everywhere with these blinking eyes and these weird zombie hands. Just undead grave stuff everywhere. So I think we hit this pretty good. Have this kind of mossy growth that we're just going to put over everything. So keep in mind this is all going to be propagated by the random world generator. So I'm just showing it to you individually right now. There's our Nekro. What's up? This is one of the witching circles. So it's just kind of, everything in the zone is just kind of cool looking. It doesn't really have a particular purpose. It just kind of sells the feel of the zone with these lights. It's like this demonic sigils all over the ground with these kind of Christmas light looking things. It's just kind of a cool little feel. So we're also experimenting with some of these decals. This thing's actually flat right here. So we just want these like big craters in the ground with these gravestones all over it. And this is one of the zone wall pieces. If you saw in the first zone, the zone wall is basically made out of trees. Well, for this we wanted these really thick rocks with these really intricate designs. And then this is one of our new units. This is definitely not done. This is work in progress, but this is the Shade. You saw the concept for her back on the Kickstarter page, and this is what she turned out in 3D. We're gonna add some really cool effects to her, and a lot of streaming, smoky effects at the very end. So that's just a sample of some of the new zone stuff that we've been working on. We have a lot more that we haven't showed you today. We just want to keep giving you a sample, keep the updates coming out, let you know that the game is still absolutely coming along very well. So I hope you enjoyed this look into how we make Nekro and how we are moving forward making the game. And just a big thank you to everyone, all the backers, and everyone that has contributed and gave us words of support. We really appreciate it. We read all the comments. We try and be as interactive as possible. If you want to discuss this or anything else, please feel free to drop over to the forums, necrogame.com, and start up a discussion or join an old one. I think that's it. Thanks so much, guys.